Hi, buongiorno everyone. So, do you know what happened? I just had my defense, and guess what happened after that? I passed it! So, if you don't know, I study English philology. Well, I did study, I don't anymore, because I passed it! English philology with culture and literary path. So that's pretty cool. This video will be basically about that, about what I've read, what I've learned, well, basically what I read. I'm really excited. I'm so happy that I passed it. That's so cool. By the way, don't you care about those 3 empty shelves? They will be filled with books very soon. I needed more shelves because I have too many books. But let's go back to the video. So today I'm gonna talk about things that I've read during my studies. We're gonna talk about novels, about short novel, focus. I'm just so excited. We're gonna talk about novels, short novels, and poetry. And we're gonna talk about American, each of those things, and English ones too, because I studied both English and American. So I'm prepared. I have my academic laptop, my academic sources. I also have my notes, few of my notes, so that's gonna be interesting. And there's one more thing that is needed. Matcha. So, I think we should start, shouldn't we? Give me a second. Yeah, I didn't prepare it. I'm so sorry. I need to take the books. So, first we're gonna talk about American short stories, short novels. So, the first one that I want to talk about is young Goodman Brown. As you can see, it's very short. It's a short story. Let me take my notebook. What was it about? And honestly, I really liked that. I think it was a very interesting short story. It is basically the story about a fall of the man. The protagonist in this short story is tempted by the devil and his curiosity. And with that, he enters the woods. That's basically the beginning. The short story covers many interesting themes, such as the mystery, the unknown, the idea of good and bad. We have the idea of faith, the idea of pureness, gentleness, but also the idea of ego and resistance. It is very interesting. At the beginning of the story, he literally lives his faith because his wife is also called Faith, and then he is being involved with the devil. Very interesting, very interesting. I recommend that. The next short story that I want to talk about is Yellow Wallpaper. Ooh, that was a great one. Its main idea is basically about the woman that was told to separate from the world in case to be healed, because she's dealing with depression and she's been told by the doctor to basically stop seeing people and be locked in a house. So she's been locked in a house, and all she does really is staring at this crazy yellow wallpaper, where the wallpaper is not crazy, it's just the wallpaper makes her crazy. It's very interesting because it focuses on ideas such as motherhood, depression, also suicidal thoughts, madness. Very extreme book, and it's very creepy and spooky too, but I loved it very much. And then we have Yellow Woman. I don't have a copy, unfortunately. Another very interesting short story about Native Americans, about the idea also folklore, myths, and being a woman, sort of finding your own identity. It is a lot of spirit talk, and the story is like somehow very magical, but somehow very creepy too. So that's the other one. Then we read A Good Man is Hard to Find. Indeed, I agree with that. Where do I have notes from it though? It's so easier to work with my notes. So it is basically a story about a family plans her trip to Florida from Georgia. Basically, we follow the story and the criminal happening that occurs in the story. The whole idea of the book is what it is to be a good man. It touches upon topics such as ego, such as selflessness, sense of morality, egoism. So it was very interesting story too. Ooh, and then we have recitative. That was good. It was really good. It's about those 2 little girls living in an orphanage that happen to be best friends. And we have this really interesting theme here of the color of the skin, because throughout the story, we know that one of them is black and one of them is white, though the writer does not tell the reader which one is which. So basically it's a story of friendship, but in the end the story says more about the reader than the actual characters in the book. Because if we really believe we're equal, why would we care about the color of the girls? Which is interesting because when you read, you want to see the character, and somehow the dialogues cannot exactly tell you which one is which, and that it sort of drives you insane. Another question, if we knew which one was which, would we treat them differently? I think it was such a powerful work because it really says more about the reader and about like the idea of who we are and what we think about people of color. I thought it was very powerful. I mean, really, Toni Morrison is a legend, so... Oh man, then we read The Cask of Amontillado. Amontillado? How do you say it? By Edgar Allan Poe. But yeah, I think I'm gonna talk about Edgar Allan Poe later, or not. How should I do it? Yeah, I'm gonna talk about him now. This was not my favorite. It was very interesting. It was definitely very interesting. It was very spooky. It was the idea of the revenge of two friends, but one of them wanting to take revenge upon the other one. The reader also does not know the reason of the revenge. We just follow the happening of one wanting to kill the other. It's full of symbolism. It's of course very gory as works of Edgar Allan Poe. It was not my favorite. I don't know why. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just going to talk about what I read. That's all. It was interesting though. It was very spooky indeed. Oh, and then we read The Murders in the Rue Morgue, also by Edgar Allan Poe. This one was very interesting. It was like I saw it as the beginning of Sherlock Holmes a little bit. I don't want to say it was not good enough because I don't want to say that stuff about Edgar Allan Poe, but the ending was so weird. Basically, we follow the mystery of the murder. That's it. That's what I can say. The Pre-Person by Philip K. Dick. Ooh, and then we also read The Golden Man by Philip K. Dick. That's really cool. So The Pre-Persons was very intense. It was definitely very extreme work and very important to talk about because it talked about the idea of abortion. It took place in this futuristic world when abortion was something based on the idea of having soul. This whole concept it's not that complicated, but I don't want to dwell too much about that. Just this idea of having power over each other's lives, because the idea of abortion in the book works like you can't have abortion till your kid is 12, I think so, because it does not have a soul, because having soul means to being able to do some math exercises. And that sounds very crazy, and I explained it very, very briefly, but that's exactly what it says. So here, you know, the abortion is captured as a murder because you can't, even when your child is 10, for example, but this is very complex work. I don't want to be misunderstood. It was very intense and very interesting, so do watch it if you're interested in this sort of dystopian ideas. The Golden Man was also a very interesting story because again, we follow happenings that are taking place in the dystopian world when there are people who has abnormal abilities. And we follow this man who is a golden man. Literally, his skin is golden. And apart from that, he cannot speak, but what he can do is actually see the future. And we see him and the other characters, sort of the higher status people, like from politics, from court, I'm not sure, I don't remember at that point, who basically kill those sort of people because they don't see them as people. They see them as creatures, as animals, as something abnormal and supernatural. So we follow the story of this golden man and him being captured, knowing that he also can see the future. That was extremely interesting. It touched upon topics such as, you know, identity, human being, what does it mean to be a human. So very extreme and important work too. Two Kinds. It was also very interesting work. It also touched upon topics such as identity, looking for your own self. Here we follow a story of a young girl, a Chinese-born girl that is being raised in America, and we sort of see the conflict between her and her mother, who wants to make her a prodigy. That was just great. That was beautiful because you could see the differences, the similarities between mother and daughter, how the idea of age differs, the idea of, you know, your hometown, of the way how you were raised, the idea of American dream. It was also very interesting and very extreme, of trying to persuade the dreams of your parents. I think the conflict was very interesting and also important to talk about. Blood Child. Oh my goodness, that was crazy. So here action also took place in this utopian, dystopian world. Humans were basically being captive. All the humanity was being captive as a slaves for those sort of creatures from another world, another universe. I don't want to say aliens, but like different creatures. People, like the guys, were being used in the process of child making for those creatures. I think the whole concept was extremely interesting and touched upon topics such as manhood, femininity, slavery. I thought it was also coming from age because we follow a story of this young boy and we see all those weird stuff happening from his perspective. So that's very interesting. It was intense at some points, but I find it very extreme and so good. Oh my god, this is so many stories. Okay, the next one are a bit shorter, so I'm just gonna... Also, we read short story Heaven from the Dear Life by Alice Munro. Oh, it was also so nice, but I don't want to make this video too long. I don't want to say that everything is good. Okay, at that point I'm not gonna talk too much about summary. I'm just gonna talk about the things that I like the most. We also read The Thing Around Your Neck and Surrounded by Sleep. That would be short stories from America. And when it comes to short stories from England, we read The Adventure of Engineer's Thumb by Arthur Conan Doyle, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin. Oh, it was so good. Oh yeah, this one was really cool. It was also very utopian, dystopian. It followed a story of a, well, Omelas place everything as everyone are happy. It sort of works as a perfect utopian land. That small addition, that happiness there can work only in this one, if this one child is going to be treated very badly and unhumanly. We have this little tiny small creature, which is a human being that is being for some reason, like, it doesn't make any sense. Just like try to see that. We have this child being captured somewhere underground, not being fed, being treated unhumanly, and we sort of follow this story of the city and the idea of, is it right being aware of somebody's pain if we know that the bigger group can maintain with happiness? So that was also very extreme, especially if we follow, you know, that idea that the child is being treated unhumanly. I think it was very interesting when it comes to idea of happiness, of good and wrong, and if we should walk away from that sort of idea or stay and just be happy with that awareness that someone else is in pain. So this one I loved. It was really intense. And then we read The Garden Party. The Garden Party was also very cool, very creepy, but this video will be too long. I still need to talk about novels. Jesus. Oh whoa, we didn't read any English novels. We read only American ones. Okay, let's go. A Streetcar Named Desire. It's a play, basically. It's a play. I liked it very much. So because of personal issues, she seeks help from her sister and her husband. So she goes to her house and we sort of follow her trying to connect to her sister and sister's husband, who is unhumanly evil and treats everyone badly. Not everyone, but the relationship between him and his wife Stella is pretty violent. So basically we follow a tragic drama of a family. And this sort of conflict between Blanche, her idea also of beauty and of being a woman and not revealing her real age, of her connecting to man, and also the idea of her sister Stella, who's being pregnant with her husband, and her not really believing her sister. It's very interesting when it comes to relationships and the connection between two people. The story itself is very simple because it's about those three people in this house. We also follow a few other people, but this is like the main idea, the conflict between three of them and an ability to overcome the reality. Great play. Oh my god. Next novel is Slaughterhouse Five. It's genius, okay? What can I say? The story is basically the account of Billy Pilgrim's life, his being captured by Germans during World War II, and it tells the story of the bombing of Dresden. Follow a story of Billy's seeing him coming from past to now, from his travels to the planet Trumfalmador. It sounds very abstract, I know. The story is written as if Billy's was traveling through time, but coming to this utopian planet of those creepy looking, not creepy, weird looking creatures. And the concept is very, very interesting because he's sure that he can travel through time. And the reader cannot really know if that's true or that it is just the Billy's imagination, but how I saw it, it was that those traumatic memories made him think the way he did. And I don't think the idea of it was to show madness, but to simply show process of human being's mind trying to get over a traumatic past. And this his fantasy world was sure that he could change the past. I don't want to talk too much about that, but I think it was such an intense piece and very intense, very good. I'm gonna go. I have to go. I have to move. But it was so good. Ooh, then we have Bartlett the Scrivener. That was very cool, very weird, very short. I'm not sure if that's a novel or also a short story. It was a bit longer than a short story. I'm not sure. It was very interesting. It followed the story of Bartlett the Scrivener. Out of the blue, I don't know what, he decided that he does not want to work anymore. And we follow him and his boss, who has no idea what to do now. And all the Bartlett says is, I prefer not to. Whatever he wants, whatever he said to do, simply says, I prefer not to. And I see it as a very intense piece of resistance. And many people think of the idea of Billy's that he sort of became so negative and so unreliable because of his sadness and depression, and he sort of lost his willingness to work. But I think the more interesting interpretation is that in some sort of way he wanted to fight the system. But that's just my interpretation. I can't talk too much. It was very interesting, like the idea of society, people, workers. Then we have The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It was so cool. It says the story of Sleepy Hollow, a creepy city that is being haunted by the headless man. It's very cool, very spooky. There was an animated version. I'm not sure if that was Disney, but it was very cute. Yeah, the book was great too. I recommend that. Spooky, great read for Halloween. Ooh, then we have Nature by Ralph Wardo Emerson. Oh yeah, that was very good. This one I actually have a copy. I have a copy. That's so. As you can see, this is also very short, but it was so good. The main reason and philosophical thoughts are sort of that happiness can be found in your own true self. And the book talks about the idea of divine, the idea of happiness, the idea of God, and the idea of nature. How you can find this divine energy in yourself and the beauty around you. I think it was very beautiful and important work. I must have some notes because I want to read you something. For example, here I underlined, poet finds something ridiculous in his delight until he's out of the sight of man. Or the other thing, and we learn that man has to access to the entire mind of the creator is himself, the creator of the infinite. I thought it was beautiful read, and I think I will be rereading that someday. The true philosopher and the true poet are one, and a beauty which is truth and a truth which is beauty is the aim of both. Amen. Then we also Walden, which touches upon a very similar topic, but from this perspective of nature only. When Emerson focuses of not only nature but also the idea of divine, the idea of soul and the God, Walden focuses more about nature and human with himself, human with nature. I want to see Walden Pond, and that's very random. Oh yes, now my favorite author ever. I mean, after Neil Gaiman, of course. We have Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I love Ernest Hemingway. I just love him so much. Alright, so in the book we basically follow the story of the group of friends, few American and British people, as they wander throughout Europe, having fun, drinking and watching bullfights in Spain. It sounds fun, but it's actually not, because the people that we follow are actually members of oppressed and cynical lost generation who came of age during the war. It's a beautiful story about human condition, the people who seek happiness in things that cannot really provide that, in things such as drinking, partying, making love to everyone around you, getting drunk. We sort of see that those short entertainments provide only with longing and sadness. It beautifully reflects on this idea of trying to escape from reality through drinking, partying. And it beautifully speaks about the relationship between people and this lost generation and this sadness, madness, and depression. It does not sound fun, but I assure you that, well, it was not a fun read, but it was very good read and very important. Next book. Ooh, that was intense. 12 Years a Slave. Yep, that was a very intense book. It's about a man being born as a free man and his story about being captive and being kept as a slave and him trying to survive, basically. It was very intense. Sometimes it was very hard to read, but man, it was so good. I have not watched a movie yet, which is, I think, good, because reading a book, I always like reading a book first, but I think it was so powerful read, and you know, it gave me so many thoughts of the idea of slavery, human beings, and you know, just idea of the past. I thought it was very, very good, and it read so great, even though it's a thick book, but it read so great. And I recommend that literally to everyone, not only students. Oh my god, how long is this video gonna be?